Hello, it's Jimmy here at O'Reilly's. Just come to look at a Ford Transit Tornado 2.2. Okay, this vehicle is at a garage here. They've had it for 6 weeks or so, something like that, he said. They're struggling with some issues. They've changed the MAF sensor, they've changed the boost sensor, they've changed the turbo hoses down there. None of these parts are new now, mind. They've all been swapped from other vehicles that they've got sitting around. They've changed the turbo, and they've changed the EGR valve and the cooler. Then he's told me they've swapped the complete engine and put another engine in. Seems a bit extreme, I know, but that's what I've been told. Okay, I'm in the vehicle. Start it up. So we've got a brake warning, fuel warning and a flat tyre warning, but we don't have any engine lights, so we'll just switch it off and switch it back on. Alright, I've got my launch Eurotab 3 set up here. We'll have a look at fault codes, and we haven't got any. So these garages have been clearing codes, but basically once you drive it, he said, you get down the road and it's triggering off all sorts of codes with the DPF and turbo boost issues. So, right, I'll go to live data and see what we can find. Boost. So we got boost actuator, desired position, boost pressure, actual position. So commanded boost actuator position, boost pressure actuator output. Let's put all of those, and we'll put for the DPF soot loading and what happened there? Differential pressure. Okay, so boost pressure actuator position looks like that's in the red. Commander position is 79%. Soot loading of the DPF 288%. Let's get this changed over. So exhaust gas differential pressure sensor. Okay, let's start it up. So the desired position, hang on a minute, yeah, so the desired position is 25, so it's at 25.27, so it's not far off. Let's start it up. Let's see where it goes. Okay, desired output, we got in negative 32s. The desired position is 80, but the position is 66 of the turbo actuator. DPF, again, like we said, is 288%. Differential pressure, wow, is high, 225 millibars of pressure at idle. Let's accelerate it up. Doesn't go any higher than that. Oh, there we go. Well, it doesn't want to rev. Basically, at 1800 RPM, we have 866 millibars of pressure on the DPF. And the more we accelerate it up, look, it doesn't. So it seems like that's the maximum the sensor can read to. Doesn't want to go any higher than that. So it's probably got at least 2,000 or 3,000 millibars of pressure. And there we are now. The DPF's just warmed up a little bit. It's gone to 300 millibars at idle. Okay, I'm gonna take out the airflow meter. We'll take out the airbox here and just get in there to where the turbo actuator sits. Get that loosened out. Well, I'm not sure if we need to open those. We might be able to just pull that out. Complete, I think we can, yeah. Okay, we have turbo actuator over here. So before I unbolt that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unplug it. So we've got a plug over here. There we go. Okay, they were kind enough to save the turbo actuator that came off the old turbo. So this is a new turbo now. They put a new turbo on with a different turbo actuator. But this was the original turbo actuator that came from the old engine. But it was given the same fault. So have we got two broken turbo actuators? I don't know, let's find out. Okay, so I'm just going to plug that in. We'll just let that sit there. We don't need to connect it up. Okay, we're back in the vehicle. So what we need to do is look at the desired position and the actual position and just see if they're sort of close to where they want it to be. Start it up. So it's better. We got 79 when the actual position desired is 80. And idle down. Slightly better. It's a little bit off, but it's close enough. Switch that off. So I've got another one here in my van here. We'll try that as well. I've got loads of these actually in the van here. Okay, same thing. I'm just going to plug this one in, let it sit there. So that's the other old one that came off. Okay, let's try this one. Start it up. That's pretty close. It's almost, well, it's exact. I'm not sure why the colours are red on that, because it's exactly where the desired position needs to be. So I'm pretty sure that that's going to sort out the boost issue. Maybe we'll take it on a test drive before we clean the DPF and just see is it boosting. I think we'll pretty much know very quickly, because I've been told that it doesn't make it to the end of the street before triggering off P0299 code. Of course, we'll have to get in here and actually fit this properly to the vehicle, and then once it's fitted, really we'll have to see if it's actually given the same reading now it's fitted. If it's not given the same reading, maybe the turbo vanes are getting stuck, so the motor is trying to move it but it just can't. But we'll swap the actuator over and then go from there. Okay, so from the rod there you got a little horseshoe clip, or whatever you'd like to call them. We've just taken that off. Now we've got 3 T30 bolts to take off. So these 3 bolts are right here. Just get these loose. 1, 2, 3 there. Pretty simple, really. So I can see the rod is moving freely as well. Okay, so that's the new actuator on. Get back in and reconnect that. Start it up. Let's see where we're sitting. So it's a little bit off, slightly. Okay, so desired is 80, position is 76. It's close, but not exactly where it's saying it wants to be. Soot loop has now gone up to 300%. DPF pressure has increased to 470 millibars there. So that's increased a little bit now. The engine's just been running for a few minutes. Right, we'll take it for a test drive. Okay, so now I'm going to need to clear all of the codes just so the van's out of limp mode. Go to special functions. I'm going to have to do some various resets just to allow the vehicle to get some boost, just so I can drive it to the top of the road basically and back. I'm going to have to reset the DPF temporarily, and I'm see if we have reset turbocharger values. Yes. Great, so I've taken the vehicle a little bit down the road here, got about a half a mile away, and we have ran out of fuel. Won't restart. Oh, we're started, and then it dies. So while we're looking here, I'll show you another problem that we've got down here. Minus 40 degrees from the ambient temperature sensor there. That's going to need to be sorted out. Otherwise, he'll continue to get DPF problems as well. So we can see there, we've got the fuel level 0% and the fuel pressure is almost 0. So it's a lesson there for me, and a lesson for customers too. Please, if you're going to have your DPF looked at or your vehicle, make sure there's enough fuel in it. Now, I did know the light was on, but I didn't think we'd be that low enough, you know, just to literally make it a half a mile before it cuts out of fuel. So besides being out of fuel here, I'm just waiting on someone to come with some fuel for me. On the bright side, if we check the codes on our launch Euro tab 3, we don't have any overboost code come back. Or sorry, my correction there, underboost. Sorry, it was a P0299 underboost code. Okay, we've got the fuel back in here, thank God. We have got a fair increase in power, but it is still struggling a little bit. But we'll re-scan it after we're back at the van. Okay, we're back from a test drive. Someone's taking my space. Luton for you. Busy town. Okay, so we haven't had the engine light come back on. We haven't got the fault code back for the turbo. We can see that the vaporizer is working because the temperature of the DPF is going up to 580 degrees there. So basically, if we can get this ridiculous DPF pressure down, it's probably sitting way over above a couple of thousand millibars at revs, but the sensor won't read anything above sort of 850. 500 millibars ish around idle, so we're going to try and clean it down. Okay, back in my van here, I've got my Launch DPF gun here, and I filled that up with some fluid from Launch UK. Can't really see, that's the fluid I'm using there. That's from launchtech.co.uk. I'm going to connect that up with this gun here to the compressor, and we'll get that fluid sprayed in through the DPF at 120 psi. Okay, so I'm under the vehicle here. Disconnected the pressure sensor holes from the DPF, and I've connected my own holes here from the DPF gun. So now I can just squeeze this trigger and that'll get that fluid right in there into the DPF. And that's just the compressor there coming on. Okay, we've disconnected the hose now. We'll just let that settle down for a minute, make sure none of it's coming out. A little bit just came out there as we pulled it off. You can see it splashed against there. Now we can just connect that back up. Put the clip back on. Okay, we've let that fluid sit for around about 5 minutes. We're back in the vehicle and we're going to set up the pressure sensor here. We'll get it on a chart and we'll start the vehicle back up now and see how the pressure's come down. Let that idle. You can see that's already come down a fair bit already there. We'll hold the revs up. So we were holding it at sort of 2000 before and we're getting 850 revs. So if we hold it in the same position, around about there, and we'll keep an eye on that gauge. See, now we've already got 181, but we're going to hold it up to 3000 RPM. $3,000 there. Now we want to see this pressure coming down below 100. See there how just how good that fluid is. Absolutely amazing. So simple, just dropping that pressure right down. A lot of people would have assumed that that DPF was not able to be saved. And to see how quickly there it's doing its job. Literally a couple of minutes, it's done that. So we need to get that, like I said, but we need to get it below 100 Ideally around about sort of 60 to 80 millibars. Okay, we're a couple of minutes in. We're down to sort of 94, 95. We'll see if we can get it a bit lower than that. Let's drop there now down to 91. So at idle now we're sitting around about 10 millibars, which is doable, but it's at the higher end of the scale. If we can get it sort of down around sort of 6-7 millibars, these usually come down to. But we're almost there. Okay, we're back to here. We're going to go to special functions again, powertrain functions, reset the particle filter learn values. We have the ignition on, yep. Okay, ignition off. Okay, and that's successful. So what that'll do is that'll reset all of the percentages back to 0 for the DPF. So if we look back in live data here, that'll be those two items that I've just reset there, the soot calculations. So that's just a calculated amount of soot that the vehicle makes up. Soot, and we have differential pressure, that one. We'll pick a few other items out. Okay, we can see we got all of the DPF calculations there back to 0. We are on 92 degrees for the coolant temperature. DPF itself is around about 8 millibars now. And if we hold it up to 3000 RPM, let's hold it up a little bit further. Let's get close to 3000 RPM. There we go. We got 67 millibars of pressure. So no engine lights. Now we can take the vehicle for a better test drive. Okay, let's test out the full acceleration. Yep, goes all the way up. It's not going in limp mode. Okay, so I would say the vehicle is driving almost as good as new, but what's happening is if we accelerate from a low revs, so it's got a bit of a flat spot and then it kicks in. So I'm just using the Launch UK Smoke 1 leak detector to make sure there's no boost leaks anywhere. Having a look. We'll leave that on there for a few minutes. So there's no leaks anywhere, so we'll take that back out. Okay, so the closest actuator we've got is sort of a tiny amount off, but I will show you these actuators here now on the ground. So this was the one that they said was the original that came off. So if you look at this one, the positioning of it is slightly different, and if we look at this one, again it's different. So if we get it to sit that way, it sits in a similar position, but it's the wrong way around. The plug's on the opposite end. So basically it just needs the correct actuator fitting to it. Okay, swap the actuator with the actuator that I had in the van, and we're test driving it again. Okay, so the van is driving a lot better. It's just got a slight bit of lag at low end RPM, but we have no fault codes returned. I would suggest just replacing the turbo with the correct one. What I've done for this test drive is I've taken the actuator from a van and we fitted that one. It seems to be a closer match. And of course we need to replace that ambient temperature sensor, but we can't get hold of one of them right now. So the ambient temperature sensor sits just in behind there, and we've got it off here, just so we can match up a new one. So we'll get a new one of those and get that replaced. Okay, so that's it really. Just needs an ambient temperature sensor putting in and the job will be finished. But like I said, with those actuators on the turbo, they have to be exactly the same, and that's what the problem was here. It's just 3 different actuators, they were all slightly different. I had one that was a very close match. It's not chucking a light, but it's not got much power under 1500 RPM. Until you get above that, then the boost kicks in. So I'd recommend just replacing that, and you shouldn't have any further issues. So see you in the next video.